IFS have outlined the conspiracy of silence between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party on £18 billion worth of public sector cuts. Read my lips. The conspiracy of silence which exists between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party when it comes to £18 billion of looming public sector cuts. Read my lips. There's £18 billion of cuts coming down the line, agreed to by Angela Rayner and Penny Mordaunt. Read my lips. There's £18 billion worth of cuts baked in to the next Parliament. And read my lips. No austerity under Labour. And read my lips. No austerity under Labour.
In my speech yesterday, I supported the King's Speech. I look forward to many bills that will be coming forward in this government, including nationalising rail, the New Deal for working people. But I was also very honest that we should go further. We can make a real difference to people's lives. And when you've got anti-charity campaigners, think tanks, trade unions saying that the key driver for child poverty in this country, which is the 6th largest economy in the world, is the Tories' two-child benefit cap, then it is a moral imperative on the Labour Party to scrap that and do everything that they can to make sure that not a single child has to live in unnecessary hardship and poverty.
How soon after you'd rebelled did you get the call to say the whip had been taken away from you?
So there was a vote straight after that main amendment that I had voted for, and then on the way home, when I looked into my emails, that's when I saw the email.
Vote my way or else option as that is, an interview by one of the 7 MPs who defied Starmer and has subsequently lost the party whip has revealed just how low Starmer and his whips were prepared to stoop in order to secure their vote. And it's pretty much as bad as voting to keep starving kids is.
They've called it authoritarian, control freak. I mean, is that what you think has happened at this point?
Well, I was quite shocked. I think many of my colleagues quite surprised in the way in which the operations took place yesterday around the vote. I myself was quite shocked and surprised to see the way in which I was treated. I had a very difficult election. I had an election where, many people said to me, we're happy to support you as an individual, but we're finding it very hard to support Labour at this time for a number of different reasons. But one of the reasons was we don't see a difference between the two main parties in Parliament. And so I had to contend with that. I also had to, unfortunately, contend with the fact that, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and coercive control. Unfortunately, I had my ex-husband standing against me. And, it's very well known that history of the things I've had to deal with. It's known within the party as well. But, the whipping operation yesterday itself...
they come to you, they call you?
I was shocked in the way that I was treated, because that element of supporting me in being able to tackle this situation around my abusive ex-husband and domestic abuse was actually put into the context of the whipping operation itself, and that was shocking.
Just be clear what you're suggesting here. So they offered you what, support in bills that you may have around that particular issue if you voted with them?
Yes.
And that's an extraordinary bit of...
And it's unacceptable. It's unacceptable. But that goes, that demonstrates, I think, the way in which that draconian stand was taken in regards to the scrapping of the two-child limit. But I think, I want to make very clear that, this was about fleshing out a commitment, a commitment that already is there, that enjoys widespread support among the Labour Party membership and beyond. People have asked us, as Labour Party members, as the wider public, and people voted for change. And it's incumbent on us to make sure we deliver that change. People don't want to see just task forces. People want to actually see delivery.
Right, so that was Afsana Begum, the currently independent MP for Poplar and Limehouse, speaking to Sky News in the aftermath of having the Labour whip pulled from her as a result of being one of those 7 Labour MPs to vote for the SNP amendment to the King's Speech demanding the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. This interview has garnered the attention of a lot of people, actually, as well it should, especially when people who are unfamiliar with Afsana and her background because as she stated there, she is a survivor of domestic violence. She had a difficult election as a result of Keir Starmer constantly aping the Tories. And even though she was one of the handful of left-wing MPs surviving Starmer's attempted purges, she still struggled because Labour were very much looking likely to be no different from the Tories. Voters knew it. And so it seems to be when they go to such lengths as they have to not lift out kids out of poverty, the poorest kids going, kids discriminated against for not being the first or second born in practice. Afsana Begum was re-elected, of course, in an election where she also had to face her abuser, her ex-husband, Entasham ul-Haq, who was standing against her. The abuse Begum has endured over the years at the hands of both Labour under Starmer and her ex-husband and his supporters has been incredulous. We know the kind of things victims of domestic violence within marriages endure, but even after the marriage, it did not end. From vexatious accusations of housing benefit fraud, which Begum was cleared of, but still ended up going to court over, and during which she was offered no support from the Labour Party. In fact, they were waiting outside, hoping for a guilty verdict, so they could expel her on the spot. Another instance was her being subjected to a trigger ballot, the process whereby an incumbent MP could be replaced with someone else, which it turned out had been allegedly run by people close to her ex-husband. Still a key figure in local Labour, as he was at that time, people who had also been involved in that housing benefit fraud case too, and other allegations surrounding the trigger ballot process included the Labour official being appointed to oversee the trigger ballot process that was the subject of complaints defaming Begum, bullying and intimidation at branch meetings where intimidation was particularly aimed at ethnic minority women. So again, Labour's hierarchy of racism plays a part here. And Afsana Begum being Muslim herself, that inherent Islamophobia in Starmer's Labour cannot be ignored as a factor too. But things got so bad for Afsana Begum, affected her health so much, she ended up being hospitalised over all of this. And even when she was in hospital, Labour continued to pursue her deselection and replacement. Despite Labour having safeguarding measures in place to protect their MPs from this level of abuse, Labour itself ignored it. An independent domestic violence advocate told Labour to abandon the corrupt trigger ballot process because of the effect it was having on Begum, and they just ploughed on regardless. Over all of this, due to its conduct in relation to Afsana Begum, the Labour Party was condemned by a domestic violence expert as conducting itself in a manner that their actions were an extension of the abuse Afsana Begum had already faced at the hands of her husband, facing her life already. She's endured all of this. She's only 34. Ultimately, this bid by Starmer's Labour to rid itself of Begum was unsuccessful. She was re-selected in May of this year and subsequently re-elected. So in light of all of that background information now, and now that you've watched that video clip, Labour's offer to her to support her work on domestic violence hinged on her voting to keep kids in poverty. That was the stunning claim she made at the end of that piece of video, that amounted to bribery towards an individual who was literally hospitalised over abuse from her ex-husband and his faction and her own party trying to get rid of her. Given what Keir Starmer's word is worth, I can't say I'm surprised at Afsana Begum's rejection of such an offer. Not that I think she would have took it up anyway. But what an amoral thing to do. Dangle domestic violence policy and willingness to help an MP who has suffered from it in front of a domestic violence survivor in exchange for her assistance in continuing to starve kids. Her vote to do that, which of course is in and of itself profoundly immoral. It's disgusting. It's frankly evil. And certainly not what people expect from Labour, let alone whipping MPs to vote accordingly to do so, as most obediently did, making that question of morality in the Labour Party an even bigger one. Keir Starmer's Labour do not have a moral compass, which might not surprise some, but a great many more are opening their eyes to this basic truth, or do so once the obviousness of this point gets pointed out to them.